Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is almost a continuation or part 3 of the vlog I did the other day because I want to take this Lincoln out for a drive and I want you to come along with me. I did a little bit of research on it before getting in it just now. This is a twin turbo V6, pumps out 450 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque, and it's linked up to a 10-speed automatic transmission. So just hearing those numbers, this thing should take off. You know, compared to a base Tahoe, you're looking at 360 horsepower. If you go with the 6.2 liter V8 Tahoe, you're looking at 420. You know, so there's definitely more power in this truck. Another thing I looked up is the fuel economy, and this says it gets an average of 18. That's city and highway combined. This one now has 3,200 miles on it, and the average fuel economy right now is 12.4. And if I go up to trip odometer 2, you're at 12.8 over 1,400 miles and 12.7, you know, over the life of the vehicle since it's been new. And I gotta say, our V8s do better than that. I have customers averaging about, 15 to 16 in our V8 Tahoes and Suburbans. So it's interesting to see how you can put a V6 twin turbo. It's gonna have a lot of power, but if you use that power, you're not getting that great a fuel economy. One cool feature which I was looking for on the screen here was a camera button. Like on the Chevys, you have a button you can hit on some of the cars as an available option where you can see all your camera settings. And I couldn't find it on the screen, but I did just find it right here. So if you press the button there, which is nice that it's a separate button and you don't have to press anything on the screen through a menu, it gives you your front camera and your surround vision, a full front camera, and like a three-dimensional type of split camera that gives you each point of the vehicle or corner and then the center. When you go into reverse, you get the same thing, only you're looking backwards. So you do have front and rear cameras, but I gotta tell you, I mean, this is tiny the way they did this on this big, huge screen. You think you'd be able to get it bigger and still have the surround vision. When you have the navigation feature on, it is a nice big screen, so no complaints there. That's real easy to see. I'm sure it's all voice controlled and stuff like that. There's a ton of controls on the steering wheel for both your information center on your LED screen in the front, your heads-up display, which there's controls here for that, and Bluetooth controls, and all your safety features as far as this looks like it has adaptive cruise control. It has lane departure warning. It's got power pedals, so all the equipment's there. But we talked about that a little bit in the last video, so let's just hop on the road. Let's drive it and see how it handles. I just went out and filmed for probably like the last 5-6 minutes driving around before I realized I didn't actually hit record. So I'm going back to the dealership. One thing I just noticed while I was at that red light, this does have auto start stop, and while it was on, the steering wheel had no power steering. And I thought the car actually was off. So I turned the wheel, and at that point the engine came back on. So we're gonna see if we can get it to happen again and sort of investigate what happens when this goes into auto start stop mode. Here we are back at the dealership where I started talking before without the record button on. So we're gonna drive right back out and start again. All right, so what I did was I pulled out on the highway here. I got off this first little exit and we make our right-hand turn down the bumpy road. This way we can feel it out. Now that I actually drove this once and I'm doing it for a second time, I'll tell you that it does ride a little bouncy. It has a little bit of a boaty, bouncy feel. And one thing I noticed in driving, it feels like there's almost play in the wheel. Now, this truck's brand new. It's a 19 that only has 3,200 miles on it. But when you get in a Tahoe and you do the same thing, it does have a more precise feel, which I would imagine is the same case in the Escalade, which would really be the direct competitor to this vehicle. I looked it up online, and this is actually a Lincoln Navigator Reserve, and they start at about $85,000. Plus options. So there is no window sticker in the vehicle, so I don't know exactly what this particular one costs. With things like this huge sunroof and stuff like that, I don't know what's standard and what's not standard, but it starts around 85. I also found in my first little 5 minutes in this truck that the performance, which is to be expected at 500 foot-pounds of torque and 450 horsepower, is fantastic. The truck takes off, the 10-speed automatic shifts very smooth. Even just something like this, kind of turning here 10 miles an hour and just accelerating up this little hill, it's a very smooth transmission shift to get that power to get up that little bit of an incline there. But the steering is what I really feel could be better, and that could be a combination of both the steering and the suspension system. I know these use sort of like a multi-link rear independent, and I think it's like a long short arm front independent or so. But it definitely has a little bit of a rock to it when you kind of go back and forth with the wheel like this. More so than the General Motors full-size trucks. And here we are back at this light for the second time. This time I can see my record button is lit up red, so I am actually recording. All right, so we're in auto start stop. It just did it. Now watch this. If you turn the wheel, it's tight, so there's no power. I don't know what kind of steering system this has, but there's no power steering to the wheel. And when you turn it and you start putting that pressure on it, that actually restarts the vehicle as well. So maybe there's a draw on power there or so that it actually has to restart, because I never let go of the brake. I just pulled on the wheel and it restarted. The heads-up display in this truck is awesome. I'm gonna try to zoom in on it there. You'll see that you have your speed, you have the speed limit for the road we're on, the miles, the time, the temperature, and it has that lane departure warning that if I drift over, it corrected just like it did right there to get me back in my lane. So it does have that lane departure, lane keep assist. Now, what this didn't do is either vibrate the seat or give me any kind of an audible noise to let me know I was drifting. The Chevys do that. This may do that as well. I would just have to go into the settings and see if it's actually a feature that's turned on or off. All right, now we're gonna check our acceleration. So as we merge in here, that's about 50% throttle. And you know, that's up to 5,000 RPMs, 57, 58 miles an hour. It gets there, you know, lickety-split. Did I just say lickety-split? It gets there quick, you know, so the 500 foot-pounds of torque and the 450 horsepower definitely do the job with that twin-turbo V6, so the power is fantastic, no complaints there. Just gonna drift over the line again, and there we go. It nudges me back. I'm gonna do it again. It's nudging me. It's actually holding the curve. Now it did nothing. All right, and it went red. So on the heads-up display, it lights up green. As you drift, it nudges the wheel. You drift more, it nudges the wheel. Once I did it the third time, it went red. And at that point, I pulled on the wheel to get myself back over the line. That's similar to the Chevrolets. They're only gonna intervene so much, and then they start giving you all sorts of warnings to take control of the wheel. So now I'm in auto stop again. Foot's on the brake. There we go. Restarts. That's one thing that the Chevrolets don't do, or at least I haven't noticed yet. It doesn't take away from the actual power steering of the vehicle. We have a little yellow indicator here now lit up on both the display by the speedometer and on the head-up display. It's probably just because I'm getting to a certain distance to that vehicle. Now it went red. So it does have a lot of visual warnings as far as forward collision alert and lane departure warning. Yeah, it definitely has fantastic power. So right now we're at 55 miles an hour. At speed, it doesn't feel quite as, like I was saying before, like boaty. It does actually hold the road pretty well. We'll see as we get into the curves up here. I'm wondering if this has some sort of an adaptive suspension. I'm assuming it does, that when you get to higher speeds, it'll tighten up, because it does hold the road pretty good at speed compared to earlier when I was only doing maybe 20, 25 miles an hour. At the red light here, we're in auto stop. Light turns green, I hit the gas, and it was pretty quick. Very little delay, if really nothing at all. There is something about it. There's something about the steering that just feels different than a GM vehicle. You know, if you ever test drive one of these, and I'm gonna do this with a Tahoe one day too, just because maybe I'm into Tahoe so much I'm just desensitized to it, and I know exactly how it's gonna handle. But this has a little bit of a lack of confidence in the steering. I don't know how to explain it, but it's sort of like as you put little inputs in, or maybe it's that you have to constantly put inputs in, because it feels like there's a little bit of play in the wheel. You know, like an inch and a half, where you move that wheel and nothing happens with the front end of the vehicle. Back in auto stop, it is pretty subtle in this vehicle. I'll look over right now. We're back running. I've pretty much gotten used to auto start stop because I'm in cars with it all the time. You know, I know a lot of people don't like it, but it is in most vehicles. I don't see an off button anywhere. However, it could be within the actual display. Here we go. Auto off. There we go. So now that's off. You have park assist. This has actual parking, I should say. It looks like where it'll search for a spot. How do I turn that back off? And then take you, and actually park you in a spot. It looks like it has that anyway. We've had that in a couple of the cars over the years, and quite frankly, I don't know, does anybody actually use that? If you have a car where it parks itself, is that something you actually use? You know, I grew up in really an urban environment, a city environment where you had to know how to park, you know, and I guess you learned that way that I could park, you know, probably 5 times faster than the computer would ever park me. You know, so for me, it's something that is useless. I would never use it. I wonder if there's anybody out there who does use it and enjoys it and it helps them out a lot. But that's pretty much it. We're back here at the store. We're gonna park this in the back because our technicians will put it through the shop and go through the process of, you know, just doing a good once over, oil change, air filter, all that sort of stuff that we normally do. And it'll be on the used car lot soon. I think we're selling it for $72. I think we have it online for already. So if you're in the market for a blown out Lincoln with all these options, by all means, check it out. I'll put a link to the vehicle down below in the description, right to our website, so you can see it. I still say that camera's too small for an $85,000 vehicle.